All right, let's take a look now at the day's business news. And joining us is our own Kate Moody.
Hi there.
Kate, we've just been discussing the tumult when it comes to the debate formats. There's only 26 days to go till Election Day. How about stimulus? Because yesterday it was on, it was off, it was back on again. What's going on?
Your guess is as good as mine, Francois. What I can tell you is that Nancy Pelosi has been speaking and really dashing hopes that airline industries had that they might get a standalone package. The Democratic Congresswoman saying she would not support an individual bill specifically targeting the airline industry, even though they've begun major layoffs in the last week. Donald Trump, of course, called off bipartisan negotiations, but then backtracked on that decision and floated support for individual targeted aid, possibly before the election. Democrats insisting that they won't approve that kind of a bill without a broader package to help smaller businesses and households as well. Well, underscoring the fragility of America's economic recovery is the number of new applications for unemployment benefits, which remained higher than analysts had expected last week. 840,000 new claims were recorded. That's slightly higher than the previous week. The numbers remain well above the pre-pandemic record of 695,000 in a week, and they are higher than during previous recessions. Most economists agree that the summer spike in hiring has now cooled, and they've been warning that businesses may not be ready to employ more people until they're assured of more financial support. Additional unemployment benefits and a possible direct stimulus check are among the measures that are being discussed on Capitol Hill. The overall unemployment rate fell to 7.9% in September, but the data don't include those who have simply stopped looking for work or the tens of thousands who have been laid off over the past week by the likes of Disney and United and American Airlines. Let's check in on the day's trading action now. Wall Street gave up some of its earlier stronger gains after Pelosi's comments. U.S. investors have been particularly tuned into the ins and outs of stimulus talks there. Still trading above the flat line there. The Nasdaq up about half a percentage point, as is the S&P. The major European indices closed higher. We saw the DAX outperforming after data showing German exports had risen for the fourth month in a row. Rolls-Royce shares soared 25% in London. A French court has told Google it must begin talks with news organizations about paying them for their content. The tech company had challenged an earlier ruling by the French Competition Authority that it must negotiate with publishers over payments for showing their material. The Paris Court of Appeals has upheld that watchdog's order, as Claire Rush reports.
It's the latest turn in a long-running dispute between Google and French media groups. On Thursday, a French appeals court ruled that Google must open negotiations with publishers in France about paying to use their content. The ruling compels Google to sit down with publishers and news agencies to find a way to compensate them under the so-called neighboring right, enshrined in the EU's revamped copyright rules. The neighboring right allows news companies to demand payment when search engines display snippets of their stories.
Donc on peut espérer que ces négociations déboucheront sur un ou des accords dans le cadre clair des droits voisins, ce qui serait une avancée très importante puisque jusqu'ici, Google avait toujours refusé une rémunération spécifique aux droits voisins.
Google had argued it shouldn't have to pay because news companies benefit from the millions of readers it sends to their websites. But after Thursday's ruling, the tech giant said in a statement that its priority is to reach an agreement with French publishers and press agencies, and that it will now review the appeal court's decision. Many news outlets have long criticized Google for failing to give them a cut of the millions it makes from ads displayed alongside news search results. Facing growing pressure internationally, Google's parent company last week announced it would invest $1 billion in partnerships with global news publishers to develop a platform highlighting their reporting.
The World Trade Organization will be led by a woman for the first time after member states whittled down the shortlist from an original 8 contenders. Nigeria's former finance minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala and South Korea's trade minister Yoo Myung-hee are now the final candidates in the running. A decision is expected by November 7th. A WTO spokesman downplayed speculation that the timing, which coincides with the U.S. presidential election, could lead to a delay in decisions. A shift in leadership in Washington could be a game changer because Donald Trump is especially critical of the WTO. The organization is facing an uphill battle to remain relevant despite a myriad of challenges, including trade tensions between the U.S. and China and Brexit.
There are a number of issues that can come to a head in December, for example, including the fishery subsidies talks that you've mentioned, very active discussions going on in some plurilaterals, including domestic regulation of services, investment facilitation. There are ongoing discussions about all kinds of reforms. There are discussions ongoing pertaining to the WTO's response to the COVID pandemic.
There you go, Francois. Just under a month to go as the member states continue their lobbying process amongst those two candidates.
All right, both high-profile candidates. Many thanks for that, Kate Moody. We'll have more business news for you coming up at the top of the hour.